Hello, everyone. I've asked you to wear the black diving mask because this is my TED Talk. This is my breaking boundaries. Please keep them on until I ask you to remove them. The sense of being completely blind, or what that feels like, is important to my story. By the way, how do you like my jacket? Okay. For the time being, you have to make do with my voice, just like the visually impaired people have to. This story began at a world exhibition in Hanover, in Germany, where I had to come up with an idea to my final project for the Design Academy in Eindhoven. At one of the stands, I felt around in a container, and I thought I felt the outline of a car. Although I know what a car looks like, it was difficult to recognize. My idea was born. How do blind people read? And could they recognize this outline or this drawing? What kinds of aids and devices are there for these special kind of people? And how could I be of value? In the Netherlands alone, there are about 350,000 people with a visual impairment. My search for answers began, and a whole world opened up to me. Of course, I heard of Braille before, but I didn't know exactly how those 6 dots work. And there are lots of aids and devices available. I still remember one of them with a smile. You could hold the little device up to your clothing and it would tell you what color you're wearing. Perfect for my jacket. It would now tell me, and you, red. But far more than looking for products, I wanted to talk to people. People who know what this feels like, who experience this and have a visual impairment. At the beginning, I was a little bit nervous. How do I shake hands with people who do not see my hand coming? And can I use expressions like, you see, or look over here, or was that stupid? I also discovered that this kind of people is a very diverse group. It makes a big difference whether you're blind or visually impaired, and if you're so from birth or later in life. At one of the training centers for people with visual impairments, I was asked to attend a cooking class. The woman teaching was preparing the dish. She read Braille on paper. She read it with her hands. She read the recipe, started peeling potatoes, washed her hands, and read on. Start making meatballs, washed her hand, and read on. This ritual of reading something from the recipe, washing your hands, doing a step from the recipe, washing the hands again, seemed to go on forever. I thought, this must work in a different way. Because when you're reading Braille, you need to have dry and clean hands. Otherwise, you might damage the paper and the paper dots. I thought that this could be different, and my idea came more and more clear. Cooking is a social event, and it means independence, taking care of yourself and doing things for yourself in a fun way. And now, I was at the cooking class, but the participants of that class wanted me to also participate. And they gave me, just like you are wearing now, a black diving mask. But I was asked to do something else. I was asked to fry an egg. There I was in the middle of the room, trying to find my egg, trying to find the pan. Well, the egg ended up even halfway into the pan, and I was proud of it. Now that I told you my egg story, I'd like you to do something for me. Please shake hands with your neighbor. Well, some of you did quite well. Some of you shook 2 hands, and some of you did not find a hand. You can take off your mask now. Welcome back. How you like my jacket now? After my cooking class, I went home with my head full of ideas and thoughts. And I started working on a draft book for my school project. My first question was, how can I reduce the times of washing hands? I thought, why can't there be plastic pages? Washable pages, preferably dishwasher proof. And a loose binder system. So you can take out your recipe and take it to the kitchen and to your counter. And it doesn't matter if you have your hands dirty. The second thing was, I wanted the people to read my book. I wanted a functional book, of course, but I also wanted the book to look good for everyone. I wanted the book for blind people, visually impaired, and people who are not, like you and like me. The third thing was smell, a very important thing for this target group. And I've seen so many perfume ads in the magazines that I thought, if this is possible, why can't I use ingredient scents in my book? And I did. These were, among others, the ingredients for my basic design, for my school project, and the book was finished also with a few touchable pages. In 2002, I finished my book and I graduated at the Design Academy. That same year, I started Query Design. That's my advertising company. But I couldn't stop thinking about this book that I made, even years later. So in 2006, I decided to hire an intern with the sole purpose to either talk me out of this book or helping me finish it. Because so many people I had worked with in this period asked me, we really want to see this book happen. I want this book, so finish it. And Remco was glad to take on this challenge. Together, we decided we needed to know what making this book was going to cost. My first question again, those plastic pages. What I taught of in school is very different than making this in reality. I knew there were plastic inserts where you can see how you can take care of your flower. They're from plastic and you can use them in the garden. I thought, if they can make that, why can't I make pages of my cookbook? The second thing was to have Braille on these plastic full-color pages. The only option was silk screening, a printing technique. And the ink even had to come from England. This does not exist in the Netherlands. The scent was printed in the same way. And then the cover of my book. Very often, Braille books are in binders. But when you have a row of binder, how can you find your cookbook? You can't recognize it because you can't see. I thought of a cover from tea towel material. It feels like kitchen. And I made it so with touchable silverware on it. Then we knew the total cost. This cost 75,000 euros to make my books. This was not on my bank account. So Remco and I decided we needed to have sponsors and subsidizers. In the past, I have had contact with the Revalidatiefonds, and they decided they wanted to sponsor us. Remco read somewhere that Vodafone supported social projects. They became our second big sponsor. Then Remco became a little bit crazy. He thought I attended the Herman Wijfels Innovation Award organized by the National Rabobank. I thought, okay, let this boy apply. At the end, I was the first woman in history to ever win one of those prizes. Well, I was not finished yet. My head was still full of ideas. How could I make these people cook? How could I help and be of value? My cookbook contains recipes from basic to more challenging. And I had to rewrite every recipe because they don't see that the butter turns brown. They listen how it sizzles. Every recipe I had to rewrite and practice and thought about how does this work when you can't see. And then a name. My creation needed a name. During my study, it was called A Cookbook for the Visually Impaired. Not that sexy name. So it became Cooking with Feeling. The biggest issue remained the two techniques combining. I've asked two printing companies who didn't even know each other to work together and try and do this thing that was never done before. I am still proud of how the three of us managed to do this and how they were able and willing to work with me. Then an organization for the blind called me. I had forgotten something. There are also people who are blind and visually impaired who cannot read Braille and cannot read large fonts. They can only use audio. And since I wanted my book to be as complete as possible, I added an audio version in the back of every book. I finished my books in 2007 and they went for sale. Almost every order came with a personal comment on why they wanted this book and who they were giving it to, or how they will opening a whole new world for them and try this. I had used my talents to encourage people to be more independent and to try something new. Try it in a fun way and thinking of what can I do instead of what can't I do anymore or what can't I do. Now it's 2014. The 7-year itch is reality for this story. This year I completed a sequel, Baking with Feeling. I discovered that this baking has more to do with emotions than cooking does. People have memories about pastries and pies that my grandma made. They can almost smell it. And measurements. Measurements is more difficult. For people who are blind, measuring is difficult. How do they do this? For instance, they use a talking scale. My dream is to maybe one day translate my books in English and help more people from this unique target group, these special kind of people who touch my heart, I hope, like you can tell, and help them. And maybe, just maybe, this TED Talk will be one little step in that direction. I hope I've given you some food for thought.